In this episode, terror strikes the rural population of northwest India. A tiger is on the loose, a silent and deadly killer that has taken 2 people in less than a week. Is this the makings of another man-eater? Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying tiger attacks on Birendra Singh and Ranveer Singh Negi. Welcome to Final Affliction. The tales of man-eating tigers have brought fear to all those who have heard them. There is an innate fear that grips a community as one by one they are picked off by a top predator under cover of darkness. It's the stuff of nightmares. Even today, plenty of rural communities in India and Southeast Asia are under threat of tiger attacks. Although not considered typical prey, humans are easy targets for these apex predators. Locals know of the dangers when they go about their everyday lives. The Sundarbans, situated in the Bay of Bengal, are world famous for their tiger attacks. In fact, it is estimated that up to 50 people each year are killed by tigers in this region. As fishermen venture further into the mangrove swamps, they are often plucked from their boats by the elusive beasts, never to be seen again. But these 2 new incidents in today's episode have happened further north. In April 2023, 2 tiger attacks shook local communities in northwestern India. The 2 attacks occurred within days of each other, sparking fears that a new man-eater was on the prowl. The deaths of the 2 men sent locals into a panic, and families feared for their loved ones working in the open fields surrounding their villages. The reaction was strong. The threat of further attacks was very real, and so local government imposed curfews and shut down schools. Tigers have been known to be some of the deadliest killers on Earth, with some of these man-eaters reaching death counts into the hundreds. The first victim was a 72-year-old called Birendra Singh. He left his home on April 13, 2023, never to be seen alive again. His destination was the farmland surrounding his home. His fields were close to the Corbett Tiger Reserve, the first national park to be established in India. It is thought to be home to more than 250 Bengal tigers. Over the years, some of these tigers have escaped into surrounding farmland. With little wildlife to feast upon, they turn to other forms of prey. Villagers had seen tigers moving amongst the shadows in recent days. They had caught glimpses of their telltale stripes between the trees, the movement of the long grass as the animals slunk away, the ravaged corpses of livestock pulled into the undergrowth. In the previous week alone, 6 cattle had been killed and eaten by a tiger. The people knew they were in danger. As dusk was settling in, Birendra was out in his fields harvesting his wheat crop. He had worked his entire life to provide for his family. He knew his fields like the back of his hand. He had lived through tough times, through drought and through floods, but he had survived them all. As he toiled the land, something lurked in the bushes, a predator that had been drawn to the open fields and the hunting opportunities there. Cattle were easy prey. So were people. At 6 p.m., the tiger ran from the undergrowth. It leapt on top of the unsuspecting Birendra. He was instantly floored, and the wind knocked from his lungs as he grappled with the enormous cat. It delivered its fatal bite moments later. The 72-year-old was dead. He hadn't stood a chance. He had died alone and at work. Nobody heard his cries. Nobody came to his rescue. The tiger dragged his limp body into the surrounding woodland to eat at its leisure. Villagers grew worried when Birendra didn't return home that evening. Armed with burning torches, they began to search the farmland. They knew something must have happened to him. He never stayed out past daylight hours. It was too dangerous. After searching for 2 hours, they found a disturbed patch of earth, the trail of flattened vegetation that led into the bushes. Lowering their burning branches to the ground, the flames illuminated the remains of Birendra. By the flickering light, they could see that his head had been partially eaten. His injuries were reminiscent of a tiger attack. The man's death sent shockwaves through the local community, But that wasn't to be the end of it. There was more to come. Just 3 days later, another attack occurred in a neighboring village, also in close proximity to the Corbett Tiger Reserve. Ranveer Singh Negi hadn't been answering his phone calls. His family grew worried about the 75-year-old's whereabouts. He lived alone at his home in Simli village in the Kalagarth Forest Division. When he didn't respond for 2 days, his family called villagers to check on him. Dutifully, they inspected his property. Ranveer was nowhere to be seen, but then they spotted something that made them freeze in their tracks. There was a trail of blood just yards from his house. The villagers followed the trail until it led them to some bushes 160 yards away. Carefully, they pulled back the branches and peered inside. There, lying on the ground, was the severely mauled body of Ranveer. Almost half of his entire body had been eaten. It was clear that it had been a tiger attack. A silent, deadly predator was lurking amongst them, one which could take a man without anyone knowing about it, killing a person with one fatal bite to the neck. There were no screams. Nobody had heard a commotion, and yet the 75-year-old had been taken just yards from his home. With the fear that a man-eater was on the loose, officials started to take action. People were advised not to enter the woodland or go out alone. The local district magistrate imposed a strict curfew on 25 villages in the area. Nobody was allowed out of their homes between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. every day, the 11 hours of darkness during which tigers are most likely to hunt. But people still had work to do. They still needed to venture into the forest to find fodder for their livestock. Without it, their animals would die. Without them, so would they. The Animal Husbandry Department began leaving animal fodder on people's doorsteps to prevent the need for them to forage in the surrounding woodland. It isn't the first time a tiger has escaped from the reserve. Only the year before, 2 friends were motorcycling along a road when a tiger leapt from the bushes. It grabbed one of the men mid-air and dragged him off, never to be seen again. The next of kin of those killed were given financial compensation. This is something that is common throughout India when a tiger strikes. But no one can rest knowing there is a potential man-eater prowling their villages. In the past, there have been occasions when tigers have ventured into people's homes, taking them from their beds as they slept. Nobody was safe. Nowhere was safe. Wildlife officials set up a cage in one of the villages with the attempt to catch the tiger. After a few days, they caught one and tranquilized it before returning it to the reserve. But there were still sightings in the farmland surrounding the villages. 3 additional cages were set up in Dala and Simli villages where the 2 men were killed. 20 camera traps were put out in the area. The hunt for the loose tiger or tigers was on. The question on everyone's lips was, could they catch the tiger before it struck again? Kota Ulis Karanth, a zoologist and tiger expert, has spent more than 30 years in the field studying tigers. He has seen hundreds of them up close during this time, and nearly all of them slink away at the first whiff of a human. They are fearful of people, but for a few rogue individuals, they have, for some reason or another, lost that fear. Some that take an opportunity to hunt humans can develop a taste for human blood. They actively seek out people, and these become known as man-eaters, the most feared of their kind. If it's the same tiger responsible for these 2 attacks, could it be heading towards man-eater status? Has it developed a taste for human blood? At the time of the making of this video, the investigation is still ongoing. The tiger or tigers responsible for the 2 men's death is still on the loose. There is no stopping a man-eater once it has turned to humans. The only way to deal with one is to kill it before it does the same to you, bringing another victim to their horrifying, final affliction.